Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're diving into a topic that literally everyone talks about, strives for, and yet defining it feels, well, it feels almost impossible sometimes. Love. It's
Mm.
this universal experience, right? We think about it, we fight for it, we dream of it, but when you actually try to pin it down, what is it?
It's a huge question.
So our
Yeah.
mission today is really to try and cut through some of that confusion. We've looked at some really insightful source material you've provided to uncover maybe a clearer, more, let's say, actionable understanding of love, what it is, and maybe just as importantly, what it isn't.
Yeah.
And I think there are some surprising insights here that might just change how you think about, your own relationships.
And it's interesting. It's not just that it's inherently hard to define, is it? The material points out, Diane Ackerman mentions this, how as a society, we're often almost embarrassed by love.
Embarrassed, how so?
Well, like we treat it as if it were, I don't know, an obscenity or something. We're reluctant to admit to it. Even just saying the word love can make people sort of stumble.
Oh.
And this lack of what Ackerman calls a supple vocabulary really stops us from, talking about it directly or even thinking about it clearly.
That's a really powerful point. That initial societal discomfort, the hesitation, the stumbling over the word itself, like it's forbidden.
Mm-hmm.
And you see how that ties into different expectations, right? The source mentions this idea that many believe women make too much of love.
Right.
And that, well, you can imagine, leads to vastly different ideas between genders
Yeah.
about what love even means.
Exactly. And that discomfort, it's made worse by just how inadequate our usual definitions are. You look it up in a dictionary,
Yeah.
and it often just focuses on the romantic side, the
Yeah.
sexual affection, defining love primarily as profoundly tender, passionate affection. And even when definitions broaden it out a bit, just saying deep affection, well, it really falls short, doesn't it? It doesn't capture the whole picture of love.
It really doesn't. And it's quite striking that many popular books on love, like Diane Ackerman's A Natural History of Love, which you mentioned, they seem to consciously avoid giving clear definitions.
Yeah, that's true.
She calls love the great intangible. And she says, quote, "We use the word love in such a slobby way that it can mean almost nothing or absolutely everything."
Which is quite a statement.
It is. And it makes you wonder why. Why do so many authors seem to, well, almost cloud our understanding instead of clarifying it?
It's a really crucial question. Because this vagueness, this lack of clarity, it isn't just some intellectual thing. It directly feeds into our practical struggles, in defining love and, maybe more importantly, in practicing love in our actual lives.
So if you can't define it.
How can you really live it? How can you know if you're truly loving or being loved?
Okay, so if these vague definitions are part of the problem, where do we find a better way to think about it? Do the sources offer maybe a breakthrough perspective?
They absolutely do, yeah. The material points towards this really pivotal shift in thinking. It comes from what the source calls more astute theorists.
Okay.
And the core idea is that love is maybe better understood as a verb, not just a noun, not just a feeling.
A verb. Okay, that feels like a significant shift.
Yeah.
What does that actually mean, in practice?
Well, it's laid out really clearly by M. Scott Peck. He echoes Erich Fromm in his classic book, The Road Less Traveled, that first came out back in 1978.
Right, I know the one.
He defines love as, and this is the core definition, the will to extend oneself for the purpose of nurturing one's own or another's spiritual growth.
The will to extend oneself for nurturing spiritual growth. Okay, let's unpack that. What does spiritual mean here? Is it religious?
Not necessarily, no. The material clarifies this. Peck uses spiritual to refer to that dimension of our core reality where mind, body, and spirit are one.
Oh, okay.
It's like an animating principle or life force. And when you nurture that in yourself or someone else, it enhances self-actualization, connection with the world. It's not tied to any specific religious belief.
Got it. So it's about growth, about actively willing that growth into being. It's intentional.
Precisely. Intention and action. Peck really clarifies this. He says, love is as love does, and then love is an act of will, namely both an intention and an action. Will also implies choice.
Choice.
Yes.
Right.
You not have to love. We choose to love. And that, well, that's fundamental.
That choice aspect, wow, that really hits differently. Because it directly counters that common idea, doesn't it? That love is just instinctual or something we just passively fall into.
Exactly. It reframes the whole thing.
And it also makes it clear that truly loving someone involves more than just feeling affection. The material lists these ingredients, right, for real love. Care, affection, recognition, respect, commitment, trust, and honest and open communication.
Yes, all of those.
And affection, while important, it's just one part of that whole mix.
Just one part. And this distinction, it becomes even more critical when we talk about something called caffecting.
Caffecting, what's that?
It basically means investing strong feelings or, intense emotion into someone or something. And a lot of people confuse this deep emotional connection, this cathexis, with genuine loving.
How so?
Well, they might insist they love someone, truly believe it, even when their actions are actually hurting or neglecting that person, simply because they feel that intense emotional bond.
So it sounds like people often feel something really strong, maybe that passionate affection we talked about earlier.
Right.
And they label it love, even if their actions, the doing part, aren't actually nurturing growth at all. Am I getting that right?
You're tracking it perfectly. It's that critical difference between the internal feeling and the external action, the doing.
Okay.
So if we take this new lens, love is a verb, love as chosen action aimed at nurture. What does that mean for how we look at our relationships, especially the difficult ones?
Well, the implication seems pretty stark and powerful.
Yeah.
Based on Peck's definition, the sources argue quite clearly that love and abuse cannot coexist.
Cannot coexist.
Right, because abuse and neglect are, well, by their very definition, the exact opposites of nurturance and care.
That makes sense.
The material gives this really potent example. A man who, say, beats his children and his wife, but then goes to the corner bar and passionately tells everyone how much he loves his family.
Oh, wow.
And maybe, if you talk to his wife on what she considers a good day, she might even insist that he does love her, despite the violence.
Yeah.
This definition cuts right through that. It says, point blank, that's not love.
And this brings up a really challenging reality, doesn't it? The sources note that an overwhelming majority of people actually come from families they'd later recognize as dysfunctional. Families where maybe shame or verbal abuse, physical abuse, emotional neglect all coexisted alongside being told, explicitly or implicitly, that they were loved.
That's a tough thing to grapple with.
It really is. And it raises this important question. Why is it so threatening for so many people to embrace a definition of love that would essentially say, love wasn't present in that abusive context?
Why cling to a version of love that makes abuse seem okay, or at least compatible with love?
Yeah, it's like it protects something, but perhaps something that needs re-examining.
The source material shares a really personal, powerful example of this. It's the author's own struggle, right? Trying to accept the label dysfunctional for their own family. They describe this really odd mixture of care and unkindness. Being praised, like, oh, you're so smart, but then just hours later being told they'd probably go crazy and be put in mental institution.
That's quite a mix.
Yeah, and the author reflects that this combination, this odd mixture, it did not positively nurture the growth of their spirit. It really highlights how just providing care isn't automatically the same as providing nurturing love.
That's a crucial distinction, care versus love. And it's profoundly difficult, as you said, for many people to accept a definition of love that says love was absent in a situation where there was abuse or serious neglect.
Yeah.
And this faulty thinking, as the source calls it, it often carries over and shapes our adult perceptions of love, what we expect, what we accept.
So it takes work to undo that.
Often, yes. The source mentions that it frequently requires some kind of therapeutic intervention, maybe through reading books like these, maybe through actual therapy, to critically look back at those childhood experiences and understand their lasting impact.
And the author eventually had this realization, right, in therapy, that they did not feel loved in our household, but that I did feel cared for.
Yes, that exact phrasing.
And they contrast that feeling of being cared for but not loved with experiences of genuine love they did have outside the immediate family, like from a grandfather, perhaps.
Right, experiences that actually did nurture their spirit.
It's such a powerful illustration that, okay, care is definitely a dimension of love. It's one of those ingredients.
Absolutely.
But just giving care on its own doesn't automatically mean someone is loving in the full sense of the word, in the sense of nurturing growth.
Exactly. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, this faulty thinking carried over from childhood, it often leads us as adults to rationalize really hurtful dynamics in our relationships.
How so?
By insisting, oh, but they love me, even when the actions don't align with nurturing growth, even when there's neglect or emotional harm.
Sort of falling back on that old confused definition.
Precisely. And the material points out something important. Accepting that maybe love, in this deeper sense, wasn't present in some primary relationships, past or present.
Yeah.
That's actually part of the healing process. There's no stigma in that realization.
That's liberating, in a way, but it also sounds like it could lead to a fear. A fear of intimacy, maybe, or risk.
It certainly can. The sources suggest that many people choose relationships that are more about affection and care, but that never quite reach that level of truly loving because, well, frankly, they feel safer. Yeah, the demands aren't perceived as being as intense. There's less vulnerability required, perhaps.
The author talks about their own pattern here, right? Of constantly choosing to be with men who are emotionally wounded.
Hmm.
It's presented as an example of, like, practicing giving love or at least care within a context that was ultimately unfulfilling because their own need to receive genuine, nurturing love wasn't being met.
It's a common dynamic, unfortunately, and it touches on what the source calls a terrible secret that many people carry.
Which is?
That deep down, they don't really know what love is.
Yeah.
And getting precise about defining it, well, it brings them face to face with our lacks, with terrible alienation.
Wow. So avoiding a clear definition is actually a comfort mechanism.
Exactly.
For society, even.
It could be seen that way, yes. It avoids confronting those difficult lacks, both personally and maybe in the relationships we see around us.
Which makes it particularly distressing, as the source notes, when you see some recent books on love actually insisting that definitions are unnecessary and meaningless.
Right, or even suggesting that love should mean totally different things for men and women.
Yeah. And the critique is that this kind of literature, it does not demand a change in fixed ways of thinking. Instead, it kind of encourages everyone to adapt to circumstances where love is lacking, rather than offering real strategies for, becoming more loving ourselves or seeking truly loving relationships.
It sort of validates the status quo, even if the status quo isn't nurturing.
Exactly. So let's circle back to Peck's definition and this idea of love as action. You mentioned earlier that thinking of love as an action automatically means assuming accountability.
Yes, accountability and responsibility, because we choose our actions, and our actions have consequences. We are responsible for whether our actions nurture growth or not.
And thinking this way, it really helps dismantle some deeply ingrained assumptions, doesn't it? Like the idea that parents always love their children automatically.
Right, or that people just passively fall in love without any choice involved.
Or even excusing harmful behavior as crimes of passion, as if intense emotion somehow negates responsibility for violent action.
Exactly.
Oh.
This framework puts the power and the responsibility squarely back onto our choices and our actions.
So when we are truly loving, according to this definition,
When we're truly loving, we openly and honestly express all those ingredients: care, affection, responsibility, respect, commitment, and trust.
through our actions.
Through our actions. If we consistently remember that love is as love does, we wouldn't use the word love in ways that, frankly, devalue and degrade its meaning. We'd hold it to a higher standard.
So wrapping this all up, what does this mean for you listening right now? This whole deep dive, it really seems to underscore the transformative power of having clear definitions. They aren't just academic exercises. The sources call them vital starting points for the imagination.
I like that phrasing.
Me too. And it follows with what we cannot imagine cannot come into being. A good definition, then, it's not constraint. It's more like a map for the journey to love.
A map to guide our actions and intentions. And the practical takeaway: we can actually spread this clearer understanding
How?
by evoking this definition in day-to-day conversations, not just with other adults, but maybe crucially in our conversations with children and teenagers.
Teaching the next generation a clearer language for love.
Exactly. By doing that, we start creating a context where love can begin to flourish more authentically.
This has been incredibly insightful. It really boils down to this core message, doesn't it? Understanding love not primarily as some fleeting feeling, but as a deliberate act of will, an action aimed at nurturing growth, both our own and others.
It's a choice, an action, and ultimately a responsibility we take on.
So a final thought to leave you with?
If a clear definition of love really is like a map for our journey, what new paths, what new possibilities open up in all our relationships when we know precisely where we want to go towards mutual growth, and we have a clearer idea of how our actions, our choices, can help us get there.